Hello, friends, and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing our recipe book that I have been talking about for a while. This is going to be part one. I'm going to try to do it in two parts, but it may end up being three. In part one, we're going to work on the recipe cards and also the first couple sections of the book. So here is a little thing where you can pause and go back to see how many cards you need. And this is pretty much what I'm going to show you how I made mine, and then, you guys do whatever. This is the the stamp set that I got from Mimi, and perfect set. Love this set. It's going to be great for writing out my recipes. It's also great for making blank cards if you're giving this as a gift, but I love this stamp set. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of pan out and show you what I did I made a lot of different sizes for this book, and I wrote them all down. It's in the front there, so you can go back and check it out. And these are all the sizes of the recipe cards you're going to need to make. And the way that I did it is I made myself an original, which these are the originals, and then I went and copied them and then cut them out. So I'm always going to keep the originals, so if I ever want to make this book again, I don't have to remake the recipe cards over and over and over again. I can just take it to a color copy machine and copy them off, which is what I did. So here is just kind of quickly going over the different sizes that I did and how I cut them out so you can see what they look like. I also took my pattern paper. Oh, sorry, there's the back side. So there, because each one of, you'll see how this one is set up. If you're not going to be using them like this and you're just going to have them separate, then you would still make your copies, but then you can just stamp instructions and do the lines on the back. So anyway, or you can, if you're really good, you can double side. I'm no good at the double side copier. So I'm using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink because I didn't want to try to fit this into my Mini Misty, and I get a perfect every time using the VersaFine. You can also pick that up at Mimi's shop as well. So I try to do each one of the cards a little bit different. So I'm just going to stamp them out using the ink. And because this is a pigment ink, you're going to need to let it dry for a little bit before you start coloring. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm stamping everything out, and then I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to color it with my alcohol markers. Now for the paper that I'm using, I'm not using Copic friendly paper because these are real simple images that don't require a lot of blending. So what I did is I'm using the same paper that I used to print out my paper from Carta Bella. So this is the 65-pound smooth white cardstock that I picked up at Walmart. I just got a big old package of it, and that's what I'm using. So worked fine. It does bleed a little bit, so you got to be a little bit careful that you don't make a big old mess, but white gel pen, best friend. Just go over that part, and then when you copy it, you won't even see any of your mistakes on the copies. So I'm just going to finish stamping everything out and getting ready to start coloring. The other thing I did is I got this hex chart, and I don't know if you're familiar with Sandy Allnock, but she's a great teacher when it comes to Copic coloring. Actually, she's a great teacher for all kinds of coloring, but specifically I downloaded the hex chart from her website for the Copic markers. That's two things that I do with it. Is here I take my paper, my chart, and then I start matching up what colors I have. So all the blanks are the colors that I haven't gotten yet, and the ones that are colored in are the ones that I have. So then I know how to pick my colors when I'm trying to match something to pattern paper. So I'm going to put all the colors up there in the corner using some reds, and I'm just going to start coloring it in. Now I sped it up a lot, so you won't have to sit here and painfully watch me do this, but if you want to skip through all this part because you just want to see the book, just kind of skip forward until you don't see me coloring anymore, and then that will start the actual book construction. Now the other thing is, if you haven't already started making your book or you don't know where to make the basic book, I will leave that link in the description below. So you just head to that link, and it is actually a downloadable file. You can use this book for anything you want. It makes a great base for you to just kind of jumping platform to go in any direction you want with your book. So I've used this book to make elementary school albums. I used it just recently for an embellishment book. I'm using it again here for a recipe book. So it's a really good, easy, basic book that, like I said, you can use for any number of different projects, and it's free. So just head over to my blog, link is in the description, and go ahead and download the tutorial, and then you put your book together, and then you can come back here and kind of follow along with this if you are interested in making the recipe book. So I'm just going to keep on going here with my coloring. And for my cards, I wanted them to be very handmade. So even though I'm stamping all this stuff out, you can see I did a lot of doodling, and that I used just a microfine, I think that's what it's called, just a black pen. It's a Copic friendly black liner pen. And I just kind of doodled around the edges. I did different things on different ones. Just kind of having some fun. I'm also going to hand draw in my lines for the ingredients and the instructions. But if you want a more professional look, just grab a ruler and you can do your lines with a ruler. You can also, no, I don't think you can because these have very specific sizes for the recipe cards. I was going to say you could maybe go get some blank cards and do it yourself, but I don't think you'd be able to fit them on these unless you wanted to resize all of your recipe cards. So anyway, now I'm just going to use my white pen and do a little bit of highlighting and my black pen to do my lines. And so I just put a bunch of lines for the ingredients, and then some lines for the instructions, and then the back side of each one of the pages that we put the recipe cards on, there's a back side, and that will just say instructions on the top, and then those lines all the way down. And I will show you that. Hopefully I'll show you that here in a second. I finished editing this the other day, so there it is right there. Now you can see me doing the instruction side. So that's the back side of the recipe card, and you'll make those the same size as the front. I also went and bought at Michael's. You do not need a 110-pound black cardstock for this. You can use 80-pound. I wouldn't go much less than 80-pound, but you definitely don't need 110. I just happened to get that on sale. So we're going to make a notepad, and this is going on our inside cover. And I missed it myself as I'm doing the voiceover, but I put the measurements up at the top. So if you need the measurements, just scroll back. I think it was 3 inches by 7 1/4, I think. Anyway, what I used was just some leftovers from an organizer, just some blank pages, and then I cut them down to the 3 by 7 1/4, and I also cut a piece of cardstock for the back. And now I'm just use my crocodile to make some holes, and now I'm using just baker's twine to tie it together. And then I'm also going to attach it with, you'll see later on, you can do a bunch of different ways you can attach this. You can make a slot and you can slide it down into the slot, or like I did, I used Velcro and just put it in. So we're going to start with our inside cover, and this is 11 by 8, and we're going to score it at 5 3/8 and 5 5/8, and that's going to make almost like a little book cover. So there's your starting page. This is your pocket. In 6 by 6, you're going to score it a 1/2 inch on 3 sides. And this is a little pencil holder. This is adorable. 1 3/4 by 4 3/4, and you're going to score it. Just kind of pause and go back and see where all your score lines are. But they're basically a 1/4 of an inch on either side, on 3 sides. I think it's like a 1/4 and a half, something like that. I don't know. You have to go back a little bit. Before you attach down your pockets, you're going to want to put down your pattern paper, because your pocket is going to go on top of that. And these ones are the ones that I printed out at the print shop, and I had them do them 5 by 5 because that fit 2 on a paper. So I'm going to cover the front cover also, because that's something you're going to see as soon as you open the book. And now I'm going to start working on my pocket. Now I want my pocket to have a little bit of a slant to it. Some of them I did straight, some of them I did a slant, some of them I did like a little cutout at the top. It just depended. I just did them different. There's a lot of pockets in this book, and the reason why I put pockets in it is because this was a personal preference of mine. This book is for me. You do not have to put pockets in it if you do not want to. You do whatever you want with your book. But I cut out a lot of recipes from books and magazines, and I get these. There's magazines that come to the house all the time, and I never have any place to put them. And my recipe books are full. I have a lot of family recipes, and so I wanted pockets so that I could stuff them inside of each one of them. Somebody gives me a recipe when I'm out somewhere, and they're like, "Oh, here, take it," then I have a place to put it. If nothing else, to wait until I have time to actually transplant it onto one of my recipe cards. So now I'm just going to cover up my pocket. And as you can see, my 5 by 5 paper didn't fit on this one. It's a little bit short, but you won't even notice. And I cut the slant a little bit too much. So if you're going to do this and you have, just kind of make sure that where you're cutting your pocket isn't too low to where you won't be able to, where you'll be able to see any paper that you don't put behind it. I was super stingy with my paper because I figured if something's going to cover it, why waste a whole sheet of paper on a part? And that's the card maker in me not wanting to waste what's behind something else. I just thought it was kind of silly, you love your paper and you want to see it. You don't want to cover it up, so why cover it? And that's pretty much what I did. So for the pencil holder, you're just going to cut off these two little edges because you do not need them. And then you're going to make like a little box. It's super cute. This is so adorable. Once it's all together, you'll see. But this was another thing that I thought I really wanted in a recipe book. This is just my own personal preference. And again, you can totally skip this if you don't want to put any of this in your book. You don't have to. But I find that when I'm making my grocery list and I'm going through my recipe book and I'm figuring out for like dinners or whatever, that's why I wanted the paper and the pencil in the book. So I'm not digging through the drawers trying to find a scrap piece of paper to write on. And I got a pencil right there so that I can just write down my ingredients, pull off my piece of paper, and go to the store. So that is what this is. And it goes right in the front cover of my recipe book. So I'm going to attach down another adorable piece of paper from this line. I just love this. Carta Bella. Anyway, so here I'm going to use some Velcro dots to hold it down. And I think if I was going to do this over again, and I may go back and change this because it kind of irritates me that every time I open my book it slides around, is I might put like a little place to slide that in behind. So you would take any old piece of cardstock and you would cut it just a little bit wider than your notebook, and then you would just attach it on the sides only, and then you could slide the chipboard part of your book. I wanted to use the piggy pen, but he didn't fit. Anyway, you would the chipboard part of your notebook into the slide to hold it in place. And I may go back and do that later because every time I open it, it shifts around, and I don't like that. So now I'm just going to attach this to the inside of my book. There it is. Just kind of evenly right in the middle of your page. And there you go with page 1. So when you open up your book, the first thing you've got is your pen, your notebook, and a little pocket. Now for the next part of the book is where we're going to start putting in some recipes. So here is everything you need to cut. Ignore the part that says pattern paper because that's just the pattern paper size. I've got the measurements up on the top of all the pieces that you need, and just kind of follow along with me. I did lose my 1-inch hole punch, so I had to use one of my dies, but if you got a hole punch, it's much easier. And a little tip, if you're going to use a die to cut that out, attach your pattern paper before you cut it. It's so much easier than trying to line it up afterwards. So now I'm just going to start putting this together, and we're going to do it the same ways we did before. So it's almost like making a book cover because you want to give it just a little bit. It's basically like a 1/4 of an inch spine, and that's so that you can fit all of your stuff inside. So we're just going to reinforce all the edges and make that 1/4 inch spine on both sides. There it is. We also have these little pockets which are going to go in there as well. And like I said, the measurements were at the beginning, so before you get to this part, you're going to be, one thing to note on the measurements is I did fix them from this, because this I felt like these little edges were a little bit too thin, so you end up with the same size at the end, but where you score is a little bit wider, so you have a little bit more room for your tape to grab onto instead of trying to attach it to this little 1/4 inch area. It was a lot harder to do it on the 1/4 inch, so I gave you a 1/2 inch all the way around. But your measurements are still the same for your finished product. So now we're going to start attaching everything down, and the first thing we want to do is put down our front flap. So that's exactly what I just did, is where you need to put it, and you're just going to adhere your tape down to the back. And for me, for this thing, I used magnets for the closures, which I will show you. If you don't have magnets, you can use Velcro as well. But I feel like you do need something to kind of keep it shut. You'll see. Now you're going to place down the other side. And this is basically making like a pocket for all of the contents that are going to go in it. So you're going to place your tape down, and then you want to put this at the other side. So you're putting your edges on either side of that page, giving you the whole center of the page to work with. And then your pockets are going to go right in here, and they're going to fit, sized perfectly to fit right inside of there. So I'm going to place down some pattern paper before I adhere my pockets down. And since my pockets are basically going to be covering up most of this, I used one of the pattern papers that didn't print so well. This was at the end of my color cartridge, and so it gave me this really ugly ombre thing at the bottom. So no biggie, I'm going to cover it up anyways, so I figured why waste the paper. So now you want to just line up your pockets evenly inside. You want to make sure that you have them lined up to where they fit, because this right here is going to close over the top and your cards are going to go here. So this is where your recipe cards are going to go. So you're going to take that area that you scored and you're just going to line them up right along the back side of the pocket. So you end up with this little flap here, and then you'll want to cover with pattern paper your pocket right there. So these are my 5x5 pattern papers that, like I said, I had printed, and your pockets are, I think, 3.5 by 5, so perfect. It leaves you a little bit of extra at the bottom. Don't throw away any of your extras because they come in handy later on. And so I'm just going to cover them up just to give you something pretty at the bottom. And then we'll finish putting the recipe holder flaps, I guess that's what you would call them. So each one of these sits right on top of the other one, so it's like a book. But I wanted the pages to have just a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller. So I'm going to cut like 1/8 of an inch off of this one. It's that little tiny sliver off of there, off both of those, and attach it. And you're just going to put the tape on where you reinforce your score line, and you're going to place those down. And you saw that have that little bit, and then this one's going to have like about 1/4 of an inch off of it. And you're going to place that right on top. So you're just stacking them one on top of the other. See, so you have just that little bit. That just helps you turn the pages a little bit easier so that they're not right on top of each other. And then your recipe cards go right on top of that. On the inside flap, we're going to put down another one of the 5x5 pieces of paper because we have our pocket that we've already cut out. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before, but I gave you the sizes at the beginning of this part. And so you can do the same thing again, reinforce your score lines, figure out where you want to trim it, or if you don't want to trim it, you don't have to. And if you don't have a mat like this, you can just measure. I think it was 1 inch from the top and then 2.5 inches from the bottom. And then just use your ruler and run a line if you want to do this. I just like having it, just gives it a little more interest. And then we're going to fix our corners here. And this is another thing that just makes it easier to adhere down, and less, if when you're stuffing things into your pockets, things don't get caught up on it as easily. If you leave those corners unfinished on the inside, sometimes things when you're trying to stick them in there will hang up on the inside of the pocket. So it's just kind of finishing the inside of your pockets. We're going to place down that, and then we're going to put the magnets. So like I said, I got some, oh wait, first I'm going to make my corners pretty on my little flap here. Now my magnets. So I got these super strong magnets. I got them at a hobby shop. Again, you can do this with Velcro. Those little Velcro dots will work just as well as these super strong magnets, and a heck of a lot cheaper. These things are very expensive, but I've had them sitting in the drawer for a while, so I thought I'd put them to good use. So basically, you just use my double-sided tape, attach both of the magnets, put some double-sided tape on the top of this second magnet that's attached right there. close the cover, push down, and then release that magnet. Then you'll cover it with your pattern paper and it'll be perfect. So I'm going to bring in my pattern paper, trim it down to the right size. If you don't want to have any border, then you'll have to trim down your papers to be the exact same size as what we did. If you want a border, then you need to cut it down just a little bit, which those measurements that are on each one of those pages before I cover them is with a border. So when you close it, there it is. And we just need to put our cover on the top. And just figuring out where I'm going to trim that down, and then just place that one on. And then you have, here is the first sections of our book. And we haven't even started decorating yet. Believe this? So you're going to do this, there's 6 pages in here, so I do 3 different sections with 3 different styles, and then you just repeat it. So this is it with the recipe cards inside already. And when we come back, I will show you a little more in depth where we're at. So hang on for video number 2. It'll be coming up real soon. And if you are here from any of Maymay's social media spots, you're not already subscribed to this channel, you're going to need to subscribe to this channel, because this will be the last design team project for Maymay that I'm going to be doing. Our term is all finished for this design team, so I don't know when or if she'll have another design team anytime soon, but this one will be my last one, and I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much, Maymay. I loved being a design team member with you. I still will be sharing projects using other Maymay products as well, so just anyway, that's all I have to say about that. So if you're not a subscriber, you probably need to subscribe if you want to see the rest of this book and actually get notifications when I post the rest of the videos. So thank you guys so much for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. I hope this gives you some ideas. I hope you like this book. If you do, give me a comment, give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe, tell all your friends, and I will see you again real soon. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.